Well, we want to send our greetings and condolences to the friends and family, those who have gathered to honor our dear friend Richard Schulz today. We're Derek and Ginger Sanders. We are living now in New Mexico, but spent many years in Chicago. And so today, not only are we thinking of especially Jan and Ricky, who were very dear to us as well. But, we spent many hours in knew the family, Harold and Dorothy, there on Collier Avenue. Spent many hours in their home, and we had chance meetings, brief meetings sometimes with Rich's brothers and sisters, Steve and Betty and Tim. And so we just want to express our condolences. We're with you. Share with you in your grief and your sorrow today, but we're so grateful that we get to be here to celebrate a life, a life well lived with you as well.
Yeah, I think that I just want to share a few memories. You know, as the years pass, we find that there's only a few people that remember those memories. And so I just kind of wanted to go back in time a little bit. When I met Rich, it was 35 plus years ago, and he was one of Derek's best friends, just full of joy and laughter. He was a bachelor at the time, so when we got married, he would come out, I don't know, once a week in that old station wagon. Jan, is the station wagon around? Because he had that forever. Is it in a museum somewhere? Because he would bring that old wagon out, trying to beat the Chicago traffic to come out and have dinner with us. And when our first daughter, Corey, was born, he was in love with her right away. She called him Uncle Rich, still does. And I remember that when he helped move us to the north side, unfortunately, Rich and his station wagon got to move us several times. He got to be involved in many moves across the city. But when we moved to the north side, we were just a few blocks from him. And so he would come on Sunday mornings and get Corey, and they would go have a donut and chocolate milk, and then they would go to church together, and we would meet them there. And I just remember when he met Jan and started bringing Jan around, and how jealous Corey was, because that was her Uncle Rich. But we were all thrilled when Jan came into Rich's life. He had prayed for a woman to come into his life and be his partner, and he had to wait a few years, and it was the most special wedding when they were united. We were just so excited for both of them and loved welcoming Jan into our little family. I also remember when both Ricky and Kelly Jean were born, the phone calls that we received from the hospital. They're here, especially with Ricky. He was just so excited to have that first baby, and just giggly almost on the phone. And of course, when Kelly Jean came, that was a really special relationship. He had a daughter, and they just were over the moon in love with both of their kids, and it was so neat to be part of their family life and watch the milestones. And even as we moved across the city, we would get together. We had several Easter Sundays together at our home in Huntley there, where we would gather with Vince and Kelly and Rich and Jan and the kids, and it was just very special. Rich always holds a special place in my heart because he prayed us through many things, and I will miss him.
Some of my fondest memories was just seeing Rich in his passion. He had a passion for the Lord. His love for the Lord was deep, and I saw that expressed in a couple different ways. It was expressed in his worship. There was just certain songs that will probably be talked about during this service that Rich, those were his songs, and it was just really something to see him just express his love for the Lord through our times of worship. But I'll never forget the times that we spent together and just praying. Rich was a prayer warrior, and I just look at Richard's physical size. He was a big guy, And I just know that he had a spirit that matched that size. I mean,
Yes.
he was a powerful prayer warrior. And so for several years on Saturday nights, we had a contemporary service at First Chicago. We called it Chicago Fire. And in talking to Rich and planning for that, we agreed, the three of us and whoever else would join. It was most of the time it was just the three of us. We would gather together in the nursery there at First Chicago, Rich's beloved First Chicago Church,
Yeah.
and we would pray for an hour. And I just remember always feeling the power of Rich's prayers. And I know that Rich, his prayers through the many years of his life really did have an impact and affected people's lives and affected things for the positive in his family and whoever. And so he was certainly a prayer warrior. You know, one of the things, I don't know if I would call it a regret, but it's just how life is, right? I just think of our lives like a book. And, you know, in order for one chapter of our life to open, a new chapter to open, one must close. And, you know, I think about the chapters where we were very close to Rich, meaning we would see him multiple times a week, the dinners, the prayers together, the worship together. And, you know, with some sadness, I say those chapters closed, but they had to close in order for new chapters in our lives to open. And as new chapters opened, it seems like we moved farther and physically farther and farther away, and we didn't have that close connection, that contact with Rich. And there's some sadness in that at the end of his last few years, we just really didn't have that close connection we did at one time. But that's how life works. But I know that Rich had new chapters in his life open. But I know that one of probably the most important things that Rich did in this life, one of his greatest purposes, his most profound ministry, was to his family, and especially to Kelly Jean. And I'm so grateful that he comforted her throughout her short years on this earth and made a difference in her life. And I know that that's going to be talked about a lot today. You know, I think about with the work we do, we work with a lot of folks here on the Navajo Nation that struggle with addictions. We deal with people who overdose or just have hopelessness, and so they willingly end their life. And I remember just taking that to the Lord at one time, saying, Lord, are we making a difference? Is what we're doing really changing things? Is it helping anyone? Because so many people are dying still. And I remember the Lord clearly reminding me that with every loss that we had prepared that soul, that life for eternity. So even though it ended in a premature death, that we had been a part of preparing someone for eternity. And I just think of Rich's role in many lives, but specifically Kelly Jean, that he prepared her for eternity. In this life, I think it was 24 years that she had, it was filled with struggle and pain and, you know, not what we would wish for her. But Rich prepared her for a life of eternity that is free from all of those things. And I can't think of any greater role that Rich could have, or anything that he could have done, greater thing that he could have done than for what he did for Kelly Jean. And so I'm just so grateful for our friend Rich. I'm so grateful for the times and the moments we've had together. And again, we are with you in your grief today. We will be with you in our longing, our loneliness for the lack of Rich's presence. But we know without a doubt where he is. We know that he's been reunited with our dear brother and sister, his parents, Harold and Dorothy, who we love deeply. But most importantly, he's still with Kelly Jean, and they're experiencing a joy that this earth can't give us, that we'll never experience in this world. So we just love you all so much. Regret that we can't be there with you today. We would have given anything to be there in your presence today, just to shed a tear with you. But mostly, this day is not about the number of tears, but it's the number of stories of joy and the
Yes.
sharing of memories
Yes.
and just the honoring a life that Richard Schulz lived so well. We love you all, and God bless you.